I see this as possibly being some kind of a Martin Luther King Jr. or a Nelson Mandela or Gandhi or some kind of a figure like that rising up to lead the Palestinian people back to a wholeness.
Hello and welcome to Seder Soul Sailing. On this channel we do predictions, astrology and tarot readings for world events, situations and anything that might be affecting the collective. So for this week we were asked to do another reading on Gaza to see how the situation is, and we're very interested to know this ourselves, so we did one. So without further ado, let's get to the reading. For the signifier, we got the Nine of Wands, which makes perfect sense right now. Right now, Gaza is a battle soldier that is still standing and struggling through the very final battle. It's a 9 card, which is symbolizing that, well, the next one's a 10, and then it's over with. And it's a painful position to be in, but they're also standing strong and they're not giving up. Now this makes perfect sense with the gateway, which is the key to moving through the situation. We got the 10 of Wands, which is somebody carrying a heavy load up the hill. And this is, I believe, encouraging them to really keep on going, like even if it's painful. And you see that in the people of Gaza. They're not just giving in, and so many people have died. It's awful, but they're going through the final push of it. And it's kind of an obvious message, but it also makes a lot of sense, and it's positive because 10s, they're endings, and that's what the whole world wants right now.
Right now, the people of Gaza are going through such horrors. They're having genocide committed against them. And when you're carrying the 10 of Wands, you can't really see past the load you're carrying. The burden is blinding you to everything else. And given what we're seeing happening in Gaza right now, it's understandable.
Everything is very terrible to watch. At the same time, in the present moment, we actually got the star. And what I believe this symbolizes right here is that right now, people of Gaza and Palestine, they're kind of the star of the show. Like finally the whole world is watching, the whole world is seeing what is happening, and at the very least they're gaining support from that, because this massacre which is happening, it's nothing new. It's just finally it's blown up to the extent where it's visible for everyone around the world.
This isn't the first time Israel's gone in and committed genocide in Gaza. They call it mowing the grass. They've been doing this for decades. I've witnessed it multiple times in my life. But there's something different this time. In the past, you couldn't talk about the fact that Israel was committing genocide in Gaza because you'd be called anti-Semitic, as if the Palestinian people aren't Semitic. They're descended from the Semitic tribe, which most of the people genetically, most of the people living in Israel are not descended from the Semitic tribes. They're descended from Eastern Europeans. So anti-Semitic would be committing genocide against Palestinian, not talking about a country that's committing genocide against Palestinians.
And this is what we see in the astrological energies, because we got the Page of Swords, and it's modified by 5 of Pentacles. So what this is telling us is that they're being attacked by a bit of a immature energy right now, but they're draining their resources at the same time. The 5 of Pentacles has to do with poverty, and I believe Israel in this situation, they're utilizing all their physical resources, but also kind of the resources that they had from other countries. Like they're losing support because people are seeing that they're not the victim in this at all, and it's starting to become more and more obvious.
This 5 of Pentacles is speaking of moral impoverishment, not just material. I mean, they're morally spent. They're morally bankrupt. They can no longer keep saying that they're the only democracy in the Middle East or whatever the hell, the most moral army in the world. The most moral army in the world is sniping and slaughtering children in the streets of Gaza. That's like saying Lot was the most righteous man in all of Sodom, after Lot tried to send his daughters out to the men of Sodom so they could do with them as they saw fit.
That's from the Bible?
That's from the Bible. Yeah, it's like, I read that, I'm thinking, this is the most moral man that they could find in Sodom. I'm just not seeing it.
And this isn't a moral man either, but I think the main weakness of this figure, Israel, what we believe this is Israel in this reading, is the immaturity. It's the believing that they understand how things work and that they can just wipe their swords through everything and there will be no consequences. And I believe they'll be waking up to this too in not very long. For the overall situation, we got the Knight of Pentacles.
The overall situation right now, there's a process that's been in planning involving Gaza, something beneficial. And right now the process is beginning to take effect. It's beginning to happen. This is action very slowly because the Knight of Pentacles is not exactly on fire.
He's in no rush.
But something is happening right now, and it's been in the works for a while. And it might have something to do with why you see world leaders who previously were slobbering over Israel's money that they were throwing at their politicians now starting to very cautiously say, this isn't so good. Like I think even, what's his name, Maggie Trudeau's boy in Canada.
Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
So perhaps the most interesting part of this reading is the desired position, where we got the 10 of Swords modified by the Page of Cups. And the 10 of Swords, it has to do with being stabbed in the back, it has to do with betrayal, and it doesn't seem to be something that one would desire, whether one is a nation or a group or a person. However, I think in this situation, because this conflict has been going on for so long, it's almost as if the collective of Gaza, their collective subconscious, so they're not necessarily aware of this, they've been manifesting things to get worse so that it can come to an end. The 10s have to do with endings. So it's almost like because they've been bombed and massacred by Israel for so long, they wanted it to get so bad that they could get the world's attention, which they now have, and for it to come to an ending. So it's like it had to get worse in order for things to come to an end and get better. And with this modified by the Page of Cups, it might also refer to a bit of the Page of Cups. It's a spiritual card.
It's a youthful kind of initiation of spirit.
So it might have to do with kind of a martyr complex that you can find in Islam and also other religions. So it's almost like, well, we need to almost sacrifice ourselves. And again, I don't think this is conscious necessarily, but it's almost like they have to sacrifice themselves for the country. And
it's working,
and it's
working. The star in the present moment says it's working. This is
it's opening the world's eyes up to what's been happening to them for so long.
Tragic and horrible. It's almost what they needed to do to wake the world up to the crimes against humanity that Israel has been committing against the Palestinian people.
Exactly. And in the root of the situation, we got the 6 of Cups. And this speaks of childhood and it speaks of nostalgia. So I think this manifestation, this collective manifestation to make things worse so that they could get better, has to do with the past. It has to do with them going back to a time when things were better, and it's happening. It's in their fears. We got the Moon and we got the 8 of Wands. And the Moon card has to do with the subconscious, and it has to do with things coming to the surface. And of course, after the conflict is done, it's not like it's going to be rainbows and butterflies. There will be a lot of emotional trauma coming from it. I think this also speaks to the ancestral trauma. Right now, when you're in the middle of carrying the load and getting through the war, in a sense, it's difficult to do any of this work because you're in survival mode. But once it's over, I think there is a fear to like truly process the emotional wounds because they're so deep in this region, and it's going to be really hard and really painful to move through it. But this is being swept off your feet. This is things coming to the surface, and this is not having a choice but to process this. So I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen.
The people of Palestine have been suffering unfathomable horrors since the 1940s, since the terrorist activities that led to the creation of Israel, the Nakba, the things that the generations and generations of Palestinians have suffered. It's inevitable that there's going to be a lot of PTSD, both from current events and from generational trauma. That it's rightfully frightening.
I think they identify so much with the physical burdens, the physical difficulties, and the physical wars are going outside of them. That's their signifier. That's the wounded warrior. That it's hard for them to kind of imagine themselves having to process the internal battles, because it's not easier or harder, but when you've had all this time to kind of become this individual here, processing your own internal turmoil is going to be difficult.
Things get very interesting in the future, though, both for the people of Palestine and for Palestine itself.
Yes. We got the Wheel of Fortune. It's their personal future. I see this as the karmic wheel. And I believe this ending chapter is bringing about something new. Things are coming to completion. And it will kind of be defined by the way that the people of Palestine and the people in Gaza kind of rise after the fall and rebuild the things that have been destroyed and redefine themselves. And maybe I think some of the advice here is to not like finish the battle, but don't over-identify as the martyr, because then, you know, when you do that, that will repeat itself in different ways.
I think the people that have been attacking Palestinians in Palestine are going to have a heavy price to pay for their actions. I believe the world is entering a phase right now where he who is now first will later be last. We could have another Nuremberg trial for war crime. We could see gallows for some of the leaders, some of the military people.
Yeah, the Wheel of Fortune is a big card. That means big changes coming. And we see that in the future card too. We got, finally, the new beginning. We pulled the Ace of Pentacles for the new beginning. And this has to do with new beginnings in the material worlds. I think this has to do with rebuilding Gaza, rebuilding the parts that have been destroyed.
It might be Palestine in general being rebuilt, the illegally occupied territories. Might be interesting to see what that becomes in a world that is shifting directions.
Yeah.
I also think this is the result of the overall situation being the Knight of Pentacles. I think, like I said, the Knight of Pentacles is a slow-moving vehicle. But when things get going, when he plants a seed, it grows into something. He doesn't mess around. And this is something coming from that action that's taking place right now.
Might also have to do with receiving aid.
It might be better than aid. I used to buy olive oil from this Palestinian family. Their family members owned a store in northeast Minneapolis. And I used to go buy this incredibly good olive oil in these 2.5 liter cans, and it was very reasonably priced. It was the best olive oil I ever got. It was so fresh. Then the Israelis bulldozed down their olive groves. They drove the family off their land and built a settlement there. So, I mean, this could refer to a new beginning of financial security, maybe these people get their olive groves back and maybe I can buy olive oil from the family again.
So for the final outcome, we got another interesting card. Here is the Emperor, and I don't know who this figure is, but I do believe it speaks of a new leader of some sort, a very strong leader. The Emperor is a complex figure because he can be very strict and cold, but he is also a protector and a provider. And I believe that they're manifesting this because that's what this country needs at this moment in time: is strong leadership, somebody who's very reliable. And this card is modified by a 2 wands, which has to do with new ventures, starting a new course. So I believe this person, whoever it might be, will be leading them to this new beginning. It will be taking them to a better place once everything is resolved.
I see this as possibly being some kind of a Martin Luther King Jr. or Nelson Mandela or Gandhi or some kind of a figure like that rising up to lead the Palestinian people back to a wholeness, back to a world where they're safe and they have their homes and they don't have to worry about being kicked out of their homes and dragged around naked, chained up by a bunch of soldiers.
So overall, the future looks really bright. They still got a way to go. They still need to continue carrying this burden as hard as it is. But karmic wheel is coming, and it's looking brighter. Thank God. We were very relieved to see that we had a positive message for the future, at the very least.
And I think these two are on either side of the emperor. You have this, and you have this is the merchants sending out his ships. I believe that the Palestinian people will become part of the world community, not just refugees. I mean, I don't think I ever heard the word Palestinian when I was a kid without the word refugee or refugee camps. Funny name for a prison camp, I guess. But I think it's saying that there's going to come a time where the people of Palestine are no longer martyrs, where they're no longer refugees, where they're no longer being the victims of genocide. It's a time where they're actually whole, complete, functioning world members.
So thank you for watching this video. We hope you want to like and subscribe because that helps us and the algorithm. It also helps you if you're interested in winning our last giveaway for this year. We'll be announcing a winner on Christmas Eve. We've had 2 thus far. So read the comment below to see what you can do to win a free tarot reading.
Also to see if you won last week's drawing, or
yeah.
we haven't been contacted from the winner of the first week's drawing, so we need you to get back in contact with us in the comments. Our cards are much happier giving readings for individual humans than they are talking about current events.
Yeah, and states are just generally kind of complicated creatures. Anyways, we wish you a nice holiday season and we hope to see you in our next video.